All right, so this is our third snippet for this week. So our first two looked at the emergence of gender and sexual orientation issues before the court, late 80s and early 90s. This our second and our third and fourth snippets are going to be looking at political / legal controversies in the late 90s and up to 2000. So this one's going to be Clinton impeachment. Next one's going to be the election of 2000. So the Clinton impeachment is this extraordinarily complex scandal in one respect, less so in the other. That dates in the aftermath of Watergate. Congress passes a law called the Independent Counsel Act, which says that places a pretty low bar for the attorney general to appoint or to call for the appointment of an independent counsel who can investigate a president or cabinet official if there's an allegation of impropriety. The independent counsel is chosen by a 3-judge panel, not by the attorney general, him or herself. And the independent counsel can only be fired by the judges. It can't the council cannot be fired by the attorney general. So there's going to be no more Saturday Night Massacre like there was with Watergate. This law is no longer on the books, but it is present at the time of the Clinton difficulties. During Clinton's time as governor of Arkansas, there were allegations that very young Bill and Hillary and their friends, Jim and Susan McDougal, had entered into a deal to develop a luxury retirement community called Whitewater on a river in northern Arkansas. The community, the development lost money. The allegation was that McDougal, who was also the director of a savings and loan of kind of independent bank in Arkansas, had improperly transferred money from the bank to the Whitewater proceedings to keep it afloat, and maybe had used his influence with either then Governor Clinton of Arkansas or First Lady Clinton to sort of hide the misconduct. Both of the McDougals eventually will be found guilty. Jim McDougal of criminal misconduct, Susan McDougal of not cooperating with the independent counsel's investigation. But even though this alleged wrongdoing, and it was never quite clear what Bill and Hillary Clinton even allegedly did, even though this alleged wrongdoing occurred before Bill Clinton was ever elected president, Attorney General Reno, remember I mentioned in the first snippet that she and Clinton don't have a particularly close relationship, interprets the independent counsel statute as to require her to appoint an independent counsel. And that independent counsel is this man, Ken Starr. And Starr, who was a former federal judge, a fairly conservative Republican, it's clear that Starr believes that Bill and Hillary Clinton are morally unfit for the White House, and he was not someone with a long record in prosecution. It was a peculiar selection in a lot of ways. The prosecution wipes out the Arkansas Democratic politics. The governor is convicted. The McDougals, are convicted. A Clinton ally who served in the Justice Department is convicted. Starr subpoenas billing records from the First Lady when she was First Lady of Arkansas. Hillary Clinton had served as a high-profile lawyer in a politically connected law firm. Starr subpoenas these records. Hillary says she can't find them, and then 2 years later she somehow does. It seems a little shaky. She's called to testify before the grand jury, the first time a First Lady had ever been called to testify before the grand jury. To sort of be asked, why didn't you produce these billing records when they were actually subpoenaed? She doesn't give a particularly compelling explanation as to why she didn't. But nonetheless, by 1997, this investigation had been going on for 3 years, and there doesn't seem to be any hard evidence that Bill or Hillary Clinton did anything wrong with regards to the Whitewater scandal or other minor scandals that Starr was investigating. It looks as if the investigation is going to be winding down. And then this woman emerges, Paula Jones, who was a secretary in Arkansas, who alleges that she was sexually harassed by her supervisor, Governor Bill Clinton, claiming that he invited her into a hotel room when she was attending a conference and exposed himself to her. Jones's story is, I think, is sort of in retrospect, is almost certainly true. The question, though, is how in fact is this sexual harassment, given that Jones doesn't seem to be able to demonstrate that she suffered any real harm in the workplace. Bill Clinton was not her immediate boss, but under a broad definition of sexual harassment, a law that Bill Clinton had ironically signed in 1994, in civil suits. So Jones, these are her lawyers, file a civil suit against Clinton, and in civil suits, it is grounds. These new sexual harassment laws allow a litigant to ask a defendant about the defendant's, if he had any kind of sexual contact with other people in the workplace. And the theory here is that if you have a boss who is sleeping with multiple members of his, and it's usually him at this point, in the workplace, if you have an employee who resists his advances, that might be seen as as problematic. The real reason, of course, that Jones's lawyers want to exploit this is that everyone has a sense that Bill Clinton has not been faithful to his wife, and forcing him to admit this under oath could be politically very harmful. And Bill Clinton understands this as well. So he goes to court to seek to delay the Jones proceedings until he leaves office as president of the United States. And in a unanimous decision called Jones versus Clinton, the Supreme Court rules in favor of Paula Jones, says that this is conduct unrelated to the president's job, therefore it's not going to be postponed until he leaves office. And in a line which turns out to be a terribly wrong prediction, the Supreme Court holds that if properly managed by the district court, it appears to us highly unlikely that this matter will occupy any substantial amount of the petitioner, that's Bill Clinton's, time. Doesn't turn out that way. It doesn't turn out that way because in the depositions, Bill Clinton is misleading about what is going on. And in particular, he's misleading about his relationship with this woman, Monica Lewinsky, who was a White House intern with whom he has a brief affair. What Clinton doesn't know is that Lewinsky has confided details about his affair to another federal employee named Linda Tripp. Tripp is close to people in conservative circles. She has turned this information over to Jones's lawyers, and so Jones's lawyers, because remember, under the law, you can subpoena, presidential or bosses' affairs with workers. The Jones people subpoena Monica Lewinsky. This triggers a huge to-do, and essentially what seems to happen is that Bill Clinton coaches Lewinsky to lie in her deposition, and tries to arrange for her to get another job as an inducement to lying. This is not particularly good behavior. The Jones lawyers know about this, and the Jones lawyers share their information with Starr. And the result is that all of this explodes in early 1998. It's leaked by a conservative to a conservative website named the Drudge Report. One of the first instances where the internet, an internet source. This is Drudge is a conservative news aggregator, shapes popular discourse. There's a sense that Clinton is going to be brought down as a result of this. The affair itself seems problematic, and the fact that he's lied in this deposition is problematic. Starr is surrounded by the media here. Lewinsky hires her own lawyer, this guy named William Ginsburg, who seems to really enjoy being on television talk shows. And Starr, who should have immediately given Lewinsky immunity to testify, instead plays hardball with her, and the matter drags on throughout the summer of 1998. Clinton denies any contact with Lewinsky in this famous snippet.
But I want to say one thing to the American people. I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never. These allegations are false, and I need to go back to work for the American people. Thank you.
He sounds very believable, doesn't he? I mean, of course, everything he said there is untrue, but nonetheless, it sounds true enough. And even though Clinton's denials don't seem terribly viable, there's no hard evidence of an affair until Tripp. This again was Lewinsky's former friend, who turns out it's like the worst friend in the world. She's surreptitiously recording conversations with Lewinsky, where Lewinsky was complaining that Bill Clinton was ignoring her, and then turns those tapes over to the Starr team. Tripp passes on news that Lewinsky had retained a blue dress that contained DNA evidence of a Clinton contact with her. Starr subpoenas the dress and gets the evidence. Lewinsky eventually flips and testifies against Clinton, and the result is a lengthy impeachment report. This is photos of the report being delivered to Congress, which makes an argument that Clinton should be impeached on grounds that he had lied before. He had lied to Starr's investigators and had lied in under oath in depositions in the Jones case. Although the legal argument is quickly blended with the political argument that seems to be saying he should be removed because he had this really unappealing affair. The issue becomes very, very political. Republicans back Starr, Democrats back Clinton. The support for Starr is in some cases bizarre. The most obvious example is this episode of this guy named Mike Pappas, who represented a moderate-ish but Republican district in central New Jersey, and who decides to compose his own song in favor of Starr in the House 1-minute sessions. In the House of Representatives, they generally have a period of time at the start of the session where members can speak for a minute on any topic that they want. And Pappas decides to share his ode to Starr, and here's what he comes up with.
Mr. Speaker, twinkle, twinkle, Kenneth Starr, now we see how brave you are. Up above the Pentagon sting, like a fair judge in the ring. Twinkle, twinkle, Kenneth Starr, now we see how brave you are. When subpoenas and lies are gone, when obstruction shines upon, then you throw your trump cards down. Twinkle, twinkle, all brought down. Twinkle, twinkle, Kenneth Starr, now we see how brave you are. Then the Congress in the dark thanks you for your courage and spark. We could not see which way to go if you did not lead us so. Twinkle, twinkle, Kenneth Starr, now we see how brave you are.
Everyone's tax dollars at work. But it becomes very political, and the issue is how is it going to be framed? Republicans argue that Clinton obstructed justice, that he had tried to arrange for this key witness, Lewinsky, to get a job in exchange for her giving untruthful testimony in his favor. Democrats argue that basically Clinton is being investigated by this sort of Inspector Javert, who is looking into his sex life in a way that no American would want a prosecutor to do. And ironically, it is the Democratic approach, the Democratic framing that prevails. In the 1998 midterm elections, which is traditionally it's the sixth year of a presidential term, it's traditionally a bad period for the in party. The Democrats actually gain seats in the House. These House seats that are in dark blue on the map here are Democratic gains. If you look closely, you'll see the district in central New Jersey represented by Congressman Pappas flips to the Democrats. Pappas is defeated by a Princeton professor named Rush Holt, who runs a famous ad just containing an excerpt of Pappas's little song with a tagline of Congressman Pappas out out of touch, out of tune, which really was a kind of clever political approach. And the sense is that the American people basically have considered the allegations and don't believe that Clinton has committed an impeachable offense, and are showing that through the elections. Republicans move forward with the impeachment anyway. They have a majority in the House. The House does vote to impeach. This is a photograph of the House managers. But in the Senate trial before Chief Justice Rehnquist, even though the Republicans have a slight majority in the Senate, they can't even get majority support, much less 2/3 support for for conviction. And so Clinton is impeached of both of the charges before him. He does become the second president to have been impeached after Andrew Johnson, but the sense is that the Clinton impeachment lowered the bar for impeachment. I think, as we sort of saw with Trump, it's become a kind of more regular process, and there is a backlash against the pro-impeachment party in the Clinton affair.